Turn the head. As you turn the head to the right, push the hands to the left. So it feels like your hands and your head are tearing against each other. Picking up the stick. So first of all, let's just work it. So the two hands pulling away from each other, pushing towards each other, twisting against each other. Gently. We're not really trying to do anything to the stick. It's more like the other end of the arms, at the shoulders. The top of the arms are working on the spine. I want the work to distribute through my body, through the skeleton. Gets into the spine, goes down to the sacrum and the tail, into the hips, down the legs, and goes up the spine, into the head. Okay, so let's just bring it behind the neck. And just hook the hands over rather than holding it. Okay, so we'll do something a bit different today. So instead of twisting, using the stick to sort of scan the spine. So have it resting on that bump at the top of your spine, at the back of your neck. And let the weight of your arms, especially the elbows, pull the stick into that bump. You're pushing your head back. So when we worked the stick with the hands, you get a sense that the stick is beginning to soften. And so you really feel that it is moving a little bit with your effort. We want the same thing here, like the spine is just beginning to soften at that point, and that vertebra is just righting itself, is pushing in a little bit. And then just roll the stick down a little bit so it's sort of on the next vertebra. And the same thing here. And then just roll it down a little bit more. And a little bit more. Then down to the next one. Observing how it makes you feel. Bringing your attention through the stick to a certain vertebra deepens or improves the breathing. There are various vertebrae that sort of just out of place a little bit, and generally they need to be pushed forwards relative to their neighbors, and it will often improve the breathing. And then just down a bit more. Feel the thymus, the upper sternum. With each vertebra, go down a bit more. The sternum will feel like it's lifting more. So the thymus is really reaching upwards. And just play with it. You can turn a bit, tip a bit. When you reach something that's interesting, just play with it. And then down as far as it will go. And then to go lower, just hold the stick with one end and just bring the other arm over and under, and then the other one. So now the stick is underneath the arms effectively, and then you can roll it down a bit more. And then it gets really interesting because, for me anyway, these are the vertebrae that are out of place. Take it down a bit more. When a vertebra rights itself, you'll be able to dig into the cushion more with the bottom of your spine and reach up to the ceiling more with the sternum, the thymus. Down a bit more. And again. We just keep going down the spine until we're at the bottom. Mind softens the bone and allows the stick in a little bit. That's the feeling. Feeling the spine, this perfect column with all the stones, all the vertebrae in line. Gravity is pulling me down into the cushion. And it's like the spine is hollow and there's a gush upwards from the ground. And that's maintaining the verticality, the posture. And when I get it, I can't think. In order to think, my spine needs to wilt. I need to droop into a loop. Here, it's just an endless flow, down and up. So this is like emptiness. So when they talk about emptiness, it's empty of the baggage of the mind. So empty of meaning, of understanding, but just full of energy, full of flow and movement. So when you get this flow, you're basically egoless. Ego is like the meaning we give ourselves. And this is just free of that. And then just bring one hand to the dantian and the other hand to the sacrum. So you put the back of the hand on the sacrum. So this is the base of the column. And then just bring the hand up to the thymus, the upper sternum. Feel the sacrum and the sternum sort of reflecting off each other. The kinks in the spine will tend to take these two out of alignment. My sacrum is sinking down with its heaviness, and my thymus is reaching up with its lightness. Just placing the hands again on the knees, just very, very gently. Feel the hollow of the hand, the middle, accepting the knee as the fingers and the edges of the hand wrap around. Let's start just by reaching down. Don't go down too low to start with. Just imagine you're lifting something up, and then you just reach up to the sky and arch back a little bit, and then down. like your two middle of the palms are trying to beam through to each other. And then just move a little bit. We're moving because the two legs are playing with each other, like two children playing catch by throwing a ball to each other. Remember that lovely story from the Tai Chi Apocrypha of the master with a sleeping puppy in his arms, and he's attacked, and he defeats his opponent, and the puppy doesn't even wake up. The sense that your two legs are cradling what's in the middle, cradling you, and moving you side to side so gently that it doesn't disturb the Dan Qian. We really need to become intimate with ourselves, with our own body. The best way to do that is to become intimate with someone else's. If you massage someone, I want to be really conscious of my sacrum, not just as a concept in my head, but as a physical actuality. Your legs are really listening to each other. So for every centimeter I push with this leg has to give an equal amount. Otherwise, this will all get crushed up a little bit. One leg is attacking, one leg is yielding. The leg that seems to be straightening is attacking. The leg that seems to be bending is yielding. So yield is a response to attack. But we want to feel that it's like I yield first. I yield, and that draws the attack out of the other leg. So this is what John used to call yielding to spirit. When I lived in Hackney, I was in the kebab shop once, and there were these two young black guys, friends, and they were just mock fighting, throwing punches at each other. And these punches came out so quick, barely see their arms move. And I told John about it. I said, how would you yield to a blow coming that quick? He said, you'd have to yield to their spirit before the blow came out. So this is the sense, this leg is yielding just a fraction before this one starts pushing. Yield is a becoming round, bending the joints into a round container. And the attacking is a becoming straight. So attack issues energy and yield contains energy. So when we were sitting down and getting the spine erect properly, then the spine is becoming basically an attacking instrument. It's sending energy through both ends. Feeling the ward off, feeling the container. What makes me move is the attack becoming a yield. It's the straight becoming round. So this is becoming straight, and then it rounds, and that brings me round. So this is straight. It's going to become round. So I'm going to create a circle out of this line of my arm and my leg. And what I have to do is keep the inside of the circle empty. So it's like a vacuum that will suck me. So I turn here and make a round container that is empty, that draws me into it and will also draw the other person. Bring it into riding horse. And just feel this. Feel the sinking. My legs are bending. But also my spine and my torso is compressing. It's as though I'm squeezing into the kidneys, like my kidneys are swelling inside. And then let's just rub the hands just to create a little bit of heat with the friction. Keep the shoulders relaxed. And then we're just going to place the hands over the kidneys. And then let's try rubbing them again. Keep the shoulders relaxed. And then once more, but this time over the sacroiliac, so either side of the sacrum. So the edge of the hands touch each other. Bringing the energy out of the sacroiliacs, down the legs, under the foot. So in other words, round the toes and then up the inside. Just pause here on these points in the groin. Want those to be really open. And then just bring it up into the dantian, not too high. So like the bladder, really. And then just loop them round again to the sacroiliacs and then just repeat. Pause here. And then one more. Feel this container, this yielding mind. It's like a ring muscle, especially here in ward off and here as well, and also around the waist. What I want to be able to do is expand the container by using my spirit. So to do that, what I don't want to do is push out. It's not like I'm expanding the container by putting more stuff in it. I want the container to be empty so that it can contain the other. So what I have to do is somehow feel as though the space around me is actually sucking me outwards. It's drawing me into it. And I just use my spirit for that. Something in me just gets a little bit tight and fierce. And I get very conscious of the space around me that's outside of my body and my ward off. And I sort of charge that up. And when I charge it up, it pulls. So a sense that you're being drawn out by a certain fierceness in the spirit. So you have to keep the sinking. The sinking is like the lid on the cooker that allows the pressure to slowly build up. So this is very much looking at pressure differentials. So it's nothing to do with relaxation. Relaxation is just the first stage. Remember when John told me I needed to get stronger and put on muscle? I said, well, should I start doing the weights? Because he had all those weights in the back room. And he said, no. He said, you don't understand relaxation properly yet. So there's this sense that the relaxation is just the beginning of something else. Relaxation is always something we need to be coming back to, because one will always tend to gather tension to oneself. It's a difficulty because it's often difficult feeling the difference between real strength and power and tension. It is a bit like pulling the head forwards and shrinking the neck down. So very much like you're being pressed down and squeezed out. Very much from the sinking. And in order to create these empty, yielding containers, the crucial points are these points here, just beneath the collarbone, inside the actual meat of the shoulder, and these points here. Let's just make the circle. But use this hand to just press into this point here. I'm wanting this to remain really hollow. There's a muscle underneath the collarbone that sort of goes from here to here. And that tends to pop out and become tense. So I want to do this circle without any tension coming into this hollow here. There's a sense that the shoulder almost dislocates when the arm comes out here. And feel that it's going behind your back. So you're actually inside the circle that you're creating. and let yourself feel it. So when I reach out here, at this maximum point of straightening before it starts bending around, there's an openness. That we really want to relish. So, ooh, something in me just lets go so that it can just pull open. It was just for a moment. Here, this one tenses up on me when I bring the hand in. I don't want the hand to come in because my shoulder is pulled in. That's what will tend to make it tense up. So here the shoulders really come out away from the body. And I just try and just get all of this to come from my waist rather than pulling my shoulder back in. But to keep this space where my fingers are pressing empty, I have to keep that intense pressure on. But it's not an internal pressure that's squeezing out. It's like something outside that's pulling. And then just in toward our it should feel really big now in the arms, but not big because something is wanting to explode outwards, but big because you're being torn by this external pull that's pulling every part of you outwards. Now let's just try just a little bit here. I mean, this is very sort of small. Making like a loop around my foot, like half of the figure of 8. I'm sort of going around the foot and just trying to keep this tendon here, you know, the one that stops you really being able to open your legs enough. Just trying to keep it relaxed. Just trying to locate the mind really that would allow it to just relax and stay relaxed. Because the only thing that makes it tighten up is fear. And lack of awareness. So the hand is trying to help the leg and the hip. The problem with the hands and the arms, they tend to claim the mind. I'm trying to keep my mind here, and the arm is just helping. Feel those two tendons and just relax them so that you can still feel them, but they're not tight. They're just a little bit loose. So when they loosen, one tends to overcompensate by bringing tension into the sacroiliacs, the sacrum, the buttocks. So you're just playing with it all the time. The full and empty. So as you bring the weight into the foot, get that sense of filling upwards. We want that sense of filling to come all the way to the thymus, to the upper sternum. That's difficult when you come into the front foot, so we have to make sure the sacrum stays underneath the sternum. Because if there's any sense of leaning forwards when you come forwards, and it won't get up to the heart, it'll get up to the solar plexus. John used to say that was the problem with a lot of young style Tai Chi, especially the style that leans forwards. Their energy comes up to the solar plexus, but it doesn't enrich the heart. This is Chen Manqing's great insight, just getting the sacrum underneath you so that the energy can just float upwards and out. So when you're in the back foot, you can lean forwards a little here. It's not so important. But when you're in the front foot, there's almost a sense of leaning back with the upper back. Something in my mind is not just allowing this flow, but encouraging it. Feeling the energy that's coming up, going into the opposite arm. So here you really have to stay open across the sacrum and across the shoulder blades. Let's try the other foot forwards. Now, instead of doing exactly the same thing, what we want to do is just try and move by yielding. So I want to move into this foot in order to feel the energy, the fullness rising up from the ground into my heart. But I want to get away from this mechanical sense of just pushing from leg to leg. So what I do, I create the ward off. I create the container, which is empty, and that draws me forwards. So you can get this sense that you're hugging someone, you're opening up, you're reaching behind them, and you're bringing them in. So this space has to remain empty, otherwise they won't be able to fit in. But we want that in the leg. So something happens here. The leg rounds out, and this again softens here. And it's that produces the container that draws me into it. And then this is almost just like an afterthought. This is just what's happening within the container. I'm effectively going around the foot, if you think of the figure of 8. Something in me is going around the leg, not just with my hand, but with the leg itself, and that draws me into it. So every time you move from leg to leg in Tai Chi, you're moving in order to embrace someone. This is the feeling. So that requires me to open up, create a hollow, and then wrap around that and bring the person in. I want to feel it happening in my leg as well as my arms. If you just carry on with it, it will come down into the legs. This is what tends to happen. So you have to get it in the arms to start with, because that's where it's clear. It's all mind, really, mind and spirit. Imagine you were actually going to embrace someone. So imagine there was someone you really love. So how easy it would be to just open up and put your arms around them, especially if you knew that they felt the same way about you. Now, just imagine it's either someone you don't like or someone that you know doesn't like you, how difficult it would be to just open yourself up and with great sincerity, just do that thing of embracing and bringing them in. And so it's difficult. It's very Christian, really. It's like offering the other cheek. You just do almost like the opposite of what the enemy expects. The enemy is expecting forceful retaliation. And instead, you just offer an open heart. And it's really strong. So try and solve a short-term problem with force, and you'll just create a much worse long-term problem. I want this opening to happen all the way down my body. So it's relatively easy to get it happening in the arms and the chest. But I really want my body to be unified from top to bottom. So it's happening in the legs as well. And if anything, it's happening much stronger in the legs. And that maintains your root because you're yielding with the legs to the ground in almost exactly the same way that you're yielding to the other with your arms. Let's just try the beginning of the form up to single whip maybe. Every time we step and transfer our weight in the form, we're doing it with that. Bring it all into the dantian and the sacrum. So stillness and spiritedness. The two prerequisites for any spiritual work. John always used to say, the thing that's missing in most spiritual work is spirit. But also the thing that's missing is real stillness. So it tends to just be another mind thing, so another aspect of ego. So the stillness has to come first. The root, the dantian, comes first, and then this can open up above it. And then you have spirit. Okay, so let's just try the form. So just sinking down. Grabbing the ground, you can think of it as something that has to happen to get the whole foot down. You remember John used to say you need to sink and just open this joint to get the foot down. If you put the heel down or the toes down, it doesn't really matter. You still have to do something here to get the whole foot down. And that's the beginning of that rounding that draws you into the foot. And then the same thing here, something in me has to open here to bring myself into the foot. And then something opens here, like an embrace here. And then just the same thing here, something embraces to bring me into that front foot for ward off left. And then again, something rounds and creates this container. Something opens and then closes. The end of the posture is closed. So this is now creating the container, this foot, and then this foot. So something's opening and containing here. And then the back leg is opening. And that provides a push for this hand. And then the front leg pulls, opens here, becomes the container and this hand. And then this leg pulls and contains for pull and push, and then the back leg. And then again, this leg, something has to sink. The straightness in the leg can start becoming round. Yield. Now just crossing hands. And then let's just try it on the other side. What stimulates the movement is not me making a decision, but an opening, a stretching and expanding of the container that sucks movement into it. So something expands here, and that draws me down into the foot. I have to create this container here. And then I create a container in this foot. And then this one. And then again this one, which brings me 100% into the foot so I can step with the other. And then again. And then this foot, so this has to open here, this point, the knee has to go out to help create this container. And then the front leg, the empty leg all the time, is rounding in order to pull effectively. And then just bring it back to peace. The real movement in the two hips, sort of jostling the sacrum a little bit. This is quiet, but it's like a muscle that's toned, that's got tension in it, but it's sort of juicy and alive, very much alive. My feet are doing this all the time with the ground. And that's working this sort of ripple up the spine, hopping through each vertebra as it comes up.